The alarms blared across the Sol defense network. Deep space sensors had detected an incoming fleet, damaged, limping, and broadcasting an emergency distress signal. Within minutes, Earth's defense forces were on high alert. Fighter squadrons scrambled, warships locked weapons, and encrypted messages shot across the system. No unidentified fleet entered Sol without clearance. Admiral Elias Voss, commander of the Human Defense Fleet, stood in the war room, his hands clasped behind his back. The holographic display in front of him flickered, showing the incoming ships. They were battered, hulls scorched, engines failing. Some barely had life support. But what caught his attention was the symbol on their hulls. The Valoran emblem. His heart clenched. The Valorans were Earth's closest allies, a peaceful race that had stood beside humanity when no one else would. And now, their ships arrived in ruins. "Open a channel," Voss ordered. The screen crackled before stabilizing. A Valoran captain appeared. His once bright golden skin was now pale, his eyes filled with fear and exhaustion. Smoke filled the background of his ship's bridge. "Humans, please, help us," he gasped. Voss leaned forward. "Captain, what happened?" The Valoran struggled to breathe. "Silari. They came without warning. We never had a chance. They wiped out our homeworld." Silence filled the room. Every officer, every soldier listening to the broadcast froze. Voss's jaw tightened. "You're telling me the Silari committed genocide?" The Valoran captain nodded weakly. "Billions. Dead. They bombed our cities from orbit. No survivors. No mercy." His voice broke. "We sent distress signals, but the Galactic Council did nothing. No one came. We ran. But they chased us. They destroyed everything." One of Voss's officers, Commander Leon, whispered, "Dear God." But Voss remained composed, his expression like stone. "And the Xilari, did they follow you here?" The Valoran hesitated, then shook his head. "No. They believe we're all dead. They think no one will care." Voss exhaled slowly, his fists clenched behind his back. The Xilari Empire was powerful, one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations in the galaxy. They ruled through fear and strength. And now, they had decided that wiping out an entire species had no consequences. "They think wrong," Voss muttered. He turned to his officers. "Get medical teams ready. Bring the survivors aboard. And send an urgent message to the War Council." Leon hesitated. "Sir, the Galactic Council will tell us to stay out of this." Voss's eyes burned with quiet fury. "Then it's time we stop listening." The War Council. A choice to make. Hours later, Earth's most powerful leaders sat around a long table, the holographic projection of the Valoran captain playing on repeat. The president of Earth, a stern woman named Amelia Kane, rubbed her temples. "This is an act of extermination," she said, "and the council refuses to act. They call it an internal conflict," one of the diplomats scoffed. "They don't want to challenge the Xilari. They're afraid." A deep silence settled over the room. Then Admiral Voss spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "We are not the council. The Valorans were our friends. They stood with us when no one else did. If we turn our backs now, then we are no better than the ones who let them die." President Kane met his gaze. "You understand what this means. If we move against the Xilari, we go to war alone." Voss nodded. "Then so be it." Another silence. Then Kane stood. "Send the order." The command was given. Across the Sol system, ships powered up, weapons loaded, and engines roared to life. Humanity's war fleet prepared to move. And the Xilari had no idea what was coming for them. The war room was silent. The holographic map of the galaxy hovered above the massive table, marking every known Xilari-controlled system in glowing red. Around the table, humanity's most powerful leaders sat, generals, admirals, and diplomats. all waiting for a decision that would change history. President Amelia Kane stood at the head of the table, her hands resting firmly on the polished surface. Her gaze swept across the room before landing on Admiral Elias Voss. "You're certain?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Voss didn't hesitate. "The Valorans were our allies. We owe them this." A diplomat on the left side of the table shook his head. "We owe them nothing. If we attack the Xilari, we will be alone in this war. The Galactic Council will not support us. They fear the Xilari." "They should," Voss replied coldly. "Because once we're done, there won't be much left of them." A murmur ran through the room. General Rourke, an older man with deep scars across his face, leaned forward. "Make no mistake, if we do this, we go all the way. We can't afford to fight half a war. We either break the Xilari completely, or they come for us next." Silence. Then Kane spoke again, her voice unwavering. "Then we go all the way." The words sealed humanity's fate. Mobilization. The war machine awakens. Within hours, Earth's military command issued the orders. Across the Sol system, human warships powered up, their engines burning with the fury of a species betrayed. Massive dreadnoughts, carriers, and destroyers moved into formation, their sleek, dark hulls reflecting the distant glow of the sun. In shipyards orbiting Mars and Luna, engineers rushed to finish the last modifications on humanity's most advanced weapons. Fleets stationed in the outer colonies received new orders. Prepare for total war. On every news channel, the broadcast played. The United Systems of Earth has declared war against the Xilari Empire. Our response will be swift. Our justice will be absolute. Crowds gathered in cities across Earth, Titan, and Mars. Some cheered. Some prayed. Some wept. But no one protested. The galaxy had turned a blind eye to genocide. Now, humanity would remind them why that was a mistake. The Xilari's arrogance. Far away, in the capital of the Xilari Empire, Emperor Xivos lounged on his throne, sipping a rare golden elixir. He listened with amusement as his advisors whispered about the human declaration of war. "Humans are fools," one of his ministers chuckled. "They have no chance against our fleets." Xivos smirked. "They are primitives playing at war. Let them come. We will crush them like we crushed the Valorans." His advisors laughed. They did not know what was coming. Admiral Voss's final words before the war. Aboard HFY Retribution, the flagship of the fleet, Admiral Voss stood on the bridge, staring at the cold void of space. Around him, thousands of warships prepared for the jump to hyperspace. He activated the fleet-wide comms. "This is Admiral Voss. Today, we sail not for conquest, but for justice. The Xilari believe no one will stand against them. They believe we are weak. They believe we will hesitate. They are wrong. We do not fight for power. We do not fight for greed. We fight for those who had no voice when the Xilari came to burn their worlds. We fight for the Valorans. We fight for honor. And we fight to remind this galaxy that humanity does not forget its friends. Set course for Xilari space. Engage FTL drives." With a single command, thousands of ships vanished into the void. The war had begun. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of fire and steel. Thousands of warships, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble strike fighters, spread across the void. Their target was Karsus Prime, a key Xilari stronghold guarding the border of their empire. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, eyes locked on the holographic display of the enemy fleet. The Xilari had stationed nearly 500 warships to defend the system, an arrogant show of force, meant to intimidate any who dared challenge them. But they had never fought humans before. "All ships, weapons free," Voss commanded. "Show them what vengeance looks like." The Xilari's last mistake. On the bridge of the XS Vorkaris, Supreme Warlord Kelm of the Xilari Navy sneered as human ships appeared on his display. "Foolish," he muttered. He turned to his officers. "Launch all fighters. Fire at will. Burn their fleet from the stars." Across the auxiliary fleet, turrets swiveled, plasma cannons powered up, and missile tubes opened. Bright streaks of energy fire lanced across the battlefield, heading straight for the human ships. They expected humans to flinch. Instead, humanity charged. Humanity's wrath unleashed. The first auxiliary shots slammed into human shields, but Earth's warships held firm. Then came the counterattack. A wave of railgun rounds, traveling at near-light speeds, tore through auxiliary cruisers like paper. Torpedoes found their targets, detonating inside the enemy formations with nuclear fury. Fighter squadrons weaved through the chaos, unleashing precise missile strikes on key enemy vessels. The XS Vorkaris rocked violently as two of its escort destroyers exploded into debris. Warlord Kelm's confidence shattered. What is this? They'd fight like demons. He had never seen such brutal efficiency. Silari warfare relied on intimidation, slow and overwhelming force, but humanity fought like predators, hunting, striking, destroying, and they weren't here to negotiate. The turning point. Within the first 30 minutes, over 150 auxiliary ships had been reduced to wreckage. Human destroyers punched through their lines, executing pinpoint strikes that shattered command vessels. The once disciplined auxiliary formations crumbled into chaos. On board the Retribution, Admiral Voss watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. "Lan," he said to his second-in-command, "what's the enemy fleet status?" Commander Lyon checked the tactical display. "Massive casualties. Some are retreating. The rest are panicking." Voss nodded. "Open a channel to the auxiliary flagship." A moment later, Warlord Kiln's face appeared on the holoscreen. Blood dripped from a gash on his forehead. His bridge was filled with smoke, his officers scrambling in panic. "You," Keln snarled. "You think this changes anything? You cannot stop the auxiliary empire." Voss leaned in, his voice cold. "We're just getting started." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire the Hellfire Lance." The Retribution's primary weapon, a planet-cracking energy lance, charged up. A heartbeat later, a blinding beam of energy erupted from the dreadnought's prow, slicing through the XS Vorkaris like a blade through flesh. The auxiliary flagship exploded, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The remaining auxiliary ships, leaderless and terrified, fled. Karsus Prime belonged to humanity, a message to the galaxy. An hour later, as human ships secured the system, Admiral Voss addressed the fleet. "Today, we have avenged the fallen Valorans. Today, we have sent a message. The auxiliary believed we would be afraid. They believed we would run. They were wrong. And this is only the beginning." As he spoke, human ships turned toward the next auxiliary world. The war had only just begun. The flames of Karsus Prime still burned in the void as the human fleet advanced. The victory had been swift, brutal, and absolute. But there was no time for celebration. The auxiliary had suffered a defeat, but they were not yet broken. If humanity wanted to end this war, they had to strike harder. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, staring at the tactical map. Their next target was Torvin IV, a major auxiliary military outpost. Unlike Karsus Prime, Torvin IV was heavily fortified, surrounded by orbital gun platforms and defensive fleets. It would not fall easily. A transmission request blinked on the comms screen. It was from General Rourke, commanding ground forces from the HSS Warhammer. "We can't just blast through Torvin's defenses," Rourke said the moment the transmission connected. "They've got planetary shields and heavy anti-ship batteries. We need boots on the ground to take down their defenses from inside." Voss sighed. "You're telling me you want to land troops in the middle of a fortress world?" "Not troops," Rourke smirked. "A team. A small, fast infiltration unit. Get them past the defenses, and they'll shut down the shield generator from inside. Voss folded his arms, thinking. It was insane. But then again, so was this war. Who do you have in mind? Rourke's smirk widened. The Black Blades. The name sent a ripple of recognition through the bridge crew. The Black Blades were humanity's deadliest special forces unit. Ghosts on the battlefield. No mission had ever been impossible for them. Within the hour, a sleek, black stealth dropship launched from the Warhammer, slipping through the battlefield like a shadow. Inside sat Commander Elias Kane, the leader of the Black Blades, along with his 5-person squad. Each of them had taken part in missions that most soldiers wouldn't even believe were possible. The dropship entered Torvin Ivy's atmosphere undetected, weaving through storm clouds as the massive city fortress loomed below. The planetary shield shimmered like a dome of light, protecting the auxiliary command centers from orbital bombardment. Kane tapped his comms. We do this fast. We do this quiet. Once the shield is down, the fleet hits them hard. The team nodded. The dropship banked, skimming just above the rooftops, before deploying its passengers. One by one, the Black Blades jumped, landing on the steel structures below. Within seconds, they vanished into the city. The mission had begun. Deep within the Auxiliary Command Center, General Voorkes of the Auxiliary Defense Force monitored the incoming reports. The humans had taken Karsus Prime, but Torvin Ivy was different. It was a fortress, built for war. The humans wouldn't dare a ground assault. They would have to break through the shields first, and that was impossible. Or so he thought. An alarm blared. A security officer rushed to his side. General, we've detected intruders inside the city. Voorkes' eyes narrowed. Humans. Unknown. They're moving too fast. Security teams can't catch them. Voorkes slammed a fist on the console. Find them. Kill them. Now. But by the time the order was given, Kane and his team were already inside the shield control station. Moving with lethal precision, they dispatched the auxiliary guards in seconds. Kane approached the control panel, placed an explosive charge, and stepped back. Shield is going down, he said into the comms. Tell Voss to get ready. On the Retribution, alarms signaled the sudden drop of the planetary shields. Voss grinned. All ships, open fire. From orbit, the human fleet unleashed hell. The skies above Torvin Ivy burned. The night sky over Torvin Ivy turned to fire as the human fleet rained destruction upon the auxiliary stronghold. Without its planetary shield, the fortress world was now defenseless against orbital bombardment. The auxiliary anti-air turrets fired desperately into the sky, but they were no match for the precision and overwhelming firepower of humanity's war machine. On the ground, Commander Elias Kane and his Black Blades moved through the chaos, evading auxiliary patrols as explosions rocked the city. Their mission was complete. The shield was down, but they were still deep behind enemy lines, and the auxiliary were hunting them. This place is turning into a war zone, muttered Sergeant Rios, scanning the burning skyline. Kane adjusted his earpiece. Warhammer, this is Kane. Shield is down. We need extraction. Fast. A burst of static followed before the voice of their pilot crackled through. Negative, Commander. LZ is too hot. You're gonna have to fight your way out. Kane clenched his jaw. Understood. We'll make our way to the Eastern District. Have a ship waiting. The team moved through the ruined streets, keeping to the shadows as auxiliary forces scrambled to defend their crumbling stronghold. Every few minutes, another orbital strike rained down, reducing key defensive positions to rubble. The auxiliary were losing, but they weren't giving up. Ahead, a squad of auxiliary shock troopers blocked their path. Unlike the standard infantry, these warriors wore heavy exo-armor and carried plasma lances capable of cutting through reinforced steel. They were elite, and they were waiting. Kane signaled for cover. Rios, suppressing fire. Dax, flank left. We take them hard and fast. Before the auxiliary could react, Rios opened fire, his pulse rifle peppering the enemy with armor-piercing rounds. Dax moved like a shadow, slipping between the debris and taking position behind them. Kane raised his plasma blade, activating its glowing blue edge. The first auxiliary charge, Kane dodged, slicing upward, severing the alien's arm in a single motion. Dax dropped 2 more with precise headshots, while Rios emptied a full magazine into the last trooper's exposed neck joint. Within seconds, it was over. The squad pressed forward, knowing more enemies would be coming. Above them, the Retribution unleashed its Hellfire Lance, a beam of searing energy that tore through the auxiliary command center, sending a towering explosion into the sky. The fortress was collapsing. Inside the burning ruins, General Vorkis, wounded and covered in ash, staggered to a communication panel. His fleet was in retreat. His soldiers were dead or surrendering. The humans had won. But the auxiliary would not forget this. He activated a secured transmission. To all remaining forces, fall back to the homeworld. We must regroup. The humans, they are more dangerous than we believed. Kane and his team reached the extraction point just as their dropship descended. As they boarded, he looked back at the devastation. The auxiliary were beaten here. But the war was far from over. As the human fleet moved out, heading deeper into enemy space, Admiral Voss sent a final message to the auxiliary empire. We are coming. The human fleet pushed deeper into auxiliary space, unstoppable and merciless. The fall of Torvin IV had sent shockwaves through the enemy's ranks. Panic spread among their colonies. Some surrendered immediately, hoping for mercy. Others fortified their worlds, preparing for the inevitable. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, watching as the fleet approached their next target. Zeros Prime, a major auxiliary industrial world. If they took Saros, the auxiliary war machine would grind to a halt. Scans, Voss asked. Defenses are heavy, his tactical officer responded. Orbital platforms, planetary turrets, and at least 3 auxiliary warfleets stationed nearby. Voss nodded. They know we're coming. Good. Let's make sure they regret staying. In the war room, General Rourke and Commander Elias Kane studied the enemy positions. The Black Blades had been given a new mission: disable Teros Prime's planetary defense grid. Without it, the human fleet could unleash its full power. Rourke pointed to a section of the map. This is their command hub. If you take it out, their orbital defenses will be blind. Kane studied the layout. Heavily guarded. We'll need a distraction. Rourke smirked. You'll have it. Hours later, the assault began. The HSS Warhammer led the charge, its massive railguns firing at the auxiliary defenses. The auxiliary warfleets scrambled to respond, engaging the human ships in a brutal space battle. Meanwhile, deep inside the city, Kane and his team moved like ghosts through the enemy stronghold. Zeros Prime was a fortress, but they had done the impossible before. As the main battle raged above, the Black Blades reached their target, a massive control center guarded by dozens of Silari elite warriors. Kane signaled to his team. Silent entry is no longer an option. We go loud. Dax grinned. Good. I was getting bored. The battle inside the command hub was fast and brutal. Plasma bolts and gunfire tore through the corridors. Kane's blade sliced through Silari armor, while Rios covered the rear with precise sniper shots. Alarms blared. The auxiliary defenders tried to hold their ground, but the Black Blades were too fast, too deadly. One by one, the enemy fell. Kane reached the control panel and planted the disruptor charge. Brace. With a deafening blast, the power grid overloaded. Across the planet, Teros Prime's defense systems shut down. Above, on the Retribution, Admiral Voss saw the signal. All ships, he ordered, his voice cold. Fire at will. The sky turned to fire. The auxiliary stronghold was doomed. The human fleet unleashed hell upon Xaros Prime. With its planetary defenses down, The world had no way to stop the relentless bombardment. Orbital platforms exploded, entire auxiliary command centers were vaporized, and their remaining fleets were forced into a desperate retreat. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, watching the devastation unfold. "Status?" he asked. "Auxiliary forces are in full retreat," the tactical officer reported. "Some ships are trying to escape to their homeworld." Voss narrowed his eyes. "Let them run. They'll carry the message." On the ground, Commander Kane and the Black Blades fought their way through the crumbling enemy city. Fires raged across Taros Prime as human dropships descended, securing key positions. The auxiliary governor had fled, leaving his remaining soldiers leaderless. As Kane and his team regrouped near their extraction point, Sergeant Rios glanced up at the burning sky. "We really did it. We broke them." Kane shook his head. "Not yet." At that moment, a distress signal came through. The auxiliary homeworld was calling for reinforcements. Kane exchanged a look with Dax. "They know we're coming." Above, the human fleet reassembled, preparing for their final assault. Xeros Prime had fallen. Now, only one world remained. The auxiliary homeworld. Seltheris. Admiral Voss sent out a final transmission across the enemy's channels. "This war ends with your home in flames. Humanity does not forgive." As the fleet turned toward Seltheris, the auxiliary leaders finally understood. They had awakened something far worse than they ever imagined. And now, nothing could stop humanity's vengeance.